Please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Trustees for the School Town of Speedway meeting for April 9th, 2024. We will be operating tonight off of a 9-item agenda. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the March 12th meeting.
I'll move that we approve the minutes of the March 12th, 2024 meeting.
Wonderful.
And I'll second that.
Great. All in favor of approving the minutes for the March 12th meeting, indicate by raising your hand. And the minutes are approved. Minutes are signed. Thank you. The second item is to review the 2021 through 2023 audit.
Thank you, Madam President. This audit was from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2023. The names listed were all the board members, along with the treasurer, Nancy M. Johnson, myself, and the president of the school boards was William Harding and Luke Bickle. After months of an audit, we found that we had two findings out of months and months of going through financial statements of receipts, disbursements, other financial and cash investment balances, all the way through supplementary information such as schedule of expenditures. Federal awards were in this audit. Notes to schedule expenditures of federal awards. Like I've said already, at the end of the day, we did have two corrections to make, which we're very proud about after months and months of an audit, only two. And the first one was in the back of your packet that I gave you, was from the stabilization fund, which is the equipment and real property management, which means this: every 2 years we have an assessed value, I guess. We do have assessed value, but we have assets that go onto a list. And as we buy and purchase things, which are hundreds of things throughout 2 years, if it's over $5,000, they need to be on our asset list. So we missed a copy machine, which was corrected right away. And we're going to move forward with making sure that we have internal controls to make sure that if there's anything within the 2 years, we make sure we move it over to a finding. So again, I'd like to bring to everyone's attention, there was no financial findings. It was just a list mistake. So we got that corrected, and it shouldn't happen again. The second one is a unique one from 1931, as we are all aware, the Davis-Bacon law that was taking place there by representatives in the U.S., I guess, legislation. In 1931, Davis and Bacon said that they had to have a fair labor costs within the total cost of a contract. So Davis-Bacon makes it to where people are paying people the right amount or at par, whatever that would be at that time. Of course, we're not in 1931 anymore. We're in today's market. So with all the ESSER funds, all the contractors would have to have a Davis-Bacon clause in, and that's something, as we were going through all our contracts, that was something that they brought to our attention that we needed to be more forthcoming. So that was just in our ESSER contracts that we've used with the ESSER money. We've got that corrected right away, and it was as simple as making sure we posted that we're equal fair rates when we're paying our people through our contractors. So those were the only two findings. This was a very large audit, and I'm very happy for Nancy Johnson and her team, as if people don't know, when we go through an audit, that's not just a 10-minute conversation, it's all day long sometimes that they're asking for stuff, and they were great too. So my hat's off to the state, the team that they brought in, and that's the report of your 21-23 state audit.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you to you and Nancy for all your work on that.
Yep.
Yeah, very much so. The third item is the presentation of the facility update.
At this time, I'll have Schmidt Associates come up and they can introduce themselves. And as we've been talking for the last many, many months here on facility, just updates and assessments of our facilities, Schmidt's going to go through some pieces of the high school and some areas out there that they found as their findings. So.
And we get this in the right mode here. Is this?
Bill, can you move over?
Let's try it. There you go.
Nope, the other one. There we go. You're on.
Okay, thanks. I'm Kyle Miller with Schmidt Associates, and it's good to see everybody tonight. Thank you. We've been working for the last couple of months just to kind of gather existing information, do some assessments of the fields, starting to work on some just planning how we move forward with the projects, obviously talking financing, all those things are kind of in the works. But one thing we want to talk about tonight was the condition of the facilities. Certainly, most of you know what that is. We kind of wanted to put that in a PowerPoint here, and that way you have a kind of record of it. We have a copy we've handed out to everybody. So with me tonight, Bob Ross, he's on our team, and Steve Schecker. Both these gentlemen will be working on the project throughout, and then we've got David Rainey here with Veritas and Patrick Davis with Meyer Nagin. I'm sure you know those gentlemen. We just been kind of working together as a team here. We try to get together every couple Mondays some work, and so we got together last week. It was more or less just to really look at the conditions of the facility and the bleachers in particular, because we know a question came up really during the interview presentations of, do you keep those bleachers, do you not? We want to go through that, and then I think the next step after this is really to fine-tune what are the options to keep them or not keep them. That way we can have a pros and cons, a cost list, something more than just an opinion, right? But to have some actual data on whether or not it's good to do that. So that would be our next step. But for tonight, we just want to run through what we found. We came out the other day and met with Mr. Kiefer, and he led us in the facilities, and we went out and took a lot of pictures. So that's what we want to go through tonight. First of all, site plan, some of the conditions. And not here to talk about all the good things necessarily. It's really to talk about, the things that, maybe need to be addressed and things that you certainly know about. Obviously, a lot of this work, the bleachers themselves were built in 1962. I'm sure there's been some touch-up and improvements and things like that done to them. But the structure themselves have been there for quite a while. And the athletic fields probably haven't changed a whole lot. Some of them have been upgraded, so on and so forth. But one of the big issues we noticed is ADA access to the fields. And if you can see, look at the softball field up in the right-hand corner and the soccer field. If you don't see any gray or any white going out there, that means you got grass all the way. You really don't have ADA access to those fields. That's important, obviously. We don't have. We do probably have some ADA access to the baseball fields, but it's a little bit closer to the road there. And then also the bleachers themselves don't have the ADA seating. You have to go up steps, so that is a challenge. And it's not just for ADA requirements for people in wheelchairs and disabled, but it's also for the grandparents that want to come out and elderly. It's tough to do that. So we think that's a priority. We think that's something we look at. We talked about that initially when we've met with Dr. Trebley and the team, is look at ADA. Some of those items are relatively easy to fix, not a big dollar amount. Getting a sidewalk out to soccer would not be a big item. But once you get there, how do we handle seating and things like that we need to look at. So again, that's something we've discussed as a group. Stop me if you got any questions along the way, otherwise I'll just keep pushing here. And then the football bleachers themselves, built in 1962, concrete structures. We've seen a lot of those over the years. A lot of them still exist out there. We've also seen a lot of them get replaced because that was just the way they were being done that long ago. Certainly a good sturdy way to do it, and then putting the rooms and restrooms underneath was also what was done. So it houses locker rooms, public restrooms. There's very minimal fixtures in there. And then, not concession stands. So the concession stands are under there, storage, and then, again, no ADA seating. The restrooms don't meet ADA, difficult to access for grandparents, elderly. They really don't meet code, but that's because they're so small. But it should be noted that anything you do to go in there and renovate those restrooms, you got to bring it all up to code. You got to bring it up to ADA. It would be difficult to provide the number of fixtures that you need inside there based on 3,000 seats roughly of seat. We've estimated about 3,000 seats out. That's a lot of fixtures. Back in 1962, there was really no requirement on how many you have to do, but it's based on seats, so we'd have to have a whole lot more than that. So those are things we got to keep in mind. And then there's leaks, environmental issues all over. I think you can walk in any of those rooms and see some of that, and that is what happens with these bleachers. They just leak. This style anyway. So a few pictures here. We brought, I think, Bob, we brought a whole bunch of pictures, right, if we need them. We've picked a few select ones that kind of represent what's going on. But the caulking that caulking at joints is very old and ineffective. It's just not been done in a while. I'm sure you get some touch up here in some areas where it really needs it, but in general, that whole facility has caulking needs all around it. That would be not just where the bleacher panels are, but also on the sidewalls and that sort of thing. There's concrete spalling and chipping throughout. A lot of those little stands that hold up the bleacher planks are failing. Some of it looks like it's been replaced over the years, which is good. But a lot of concrete spalling all around that building. The bleacher planks are older. Those have probably been replaced since 1962. It's my guess. But even those are starting to, they're starting to age for sure. The railings, you can see this picture here. The railing really isn't bent there. It's just that front wall's kind of falling away. And so that creates a joint. I think that's on the visitor side, isn't it, Bob? Do you remember? Or the home side, the west side. It's probably happening to some extent on both sides, but that was one of our severe pictures, causing that railing to lean. The railings are old and they're not in really good condition. So that's one thing we found. Then when you go inside the building, just leaks throughout. Environmental health concerns. Anytime you have water leaks, you don't have the best HVAC systems, humidity, you're going to end up with environmental issues and health concerns. So that would be a concern when having people in all those spaces. And then also, if you look at the upper right corner, if you're looking to rehab or go back and put spaces back in there, certainly head height is an issue. So you get obviously down towards the field side of it, you lose that head height. Those are things we want to look at to make sure that when you build that back, I mean, there's some restrictions on head height, right, Steve, that we've got to have so people don't hit their head. So that you'll probably lose some space by bringing that up to code. And then the restrooms don't, like I said earlier, they don't meet code, and a very low fixture count in those. And the spacing of sinks, spacings of urinals, and all those sorts of things. Again, same note here, that just got a picture here of some, I think that's some caulking insulation type of thing that's been blown in there. Some of it's probably fallen out, but you can see where there's evidence of leaking going on. And then at the upper right corner, the bleachers, the home and visitors. First of all, there's about 1,500 seats each side, like I said. If you save those, you're still going to have 1,500 home and 1,500. That number may come down some because the bleacher seats will probably we'll have to have more aisles and things like that to meet the current code. But in general, you'll have the same amount of home side as you have the visitor side. So that's something you think about. Obviously, most high schools, you have more on the home side and less on the visitor side. So that's something that would be tough to change. But the bleachers, elevated height is low compared to modern bleachers. We usually go up maybe 3 to 4 feet high off the field. The other thing we're doing now with your newer stadiums is you bring that all the way up to the edge of the track. So you have much better views, you're much closer, and then we can put a little, on the new bleachers, you can put the pathway on the bleachers instead of down below. That way we can bring it all the way up to the fence. So you have much better views. These bleachers are about 27 feet off the edge of the track. So keeping them where they are, you'd still be about 27 feet off the track. Now, if we rebuild that track, it might come out some, but you're still going to be quite a bit of ways and not very elevated. These are estimated to be about 27, 28 inches up. And again, we'd probably want to go another 12 to 18 inches higher than that with any new bleachers. So anyway, that's a condition, obviously very tough. You can't really change that by keeping these bleachers. And then again, the restroom, had another picture here of the restroom conditions. The press box, it's very small. It's certainly outdated. It's obviously, you've added some things to it, sound systems, those sorts of things. People can certainly sit in there and call the game, but it's a very small press box. It's outdated, needs some improvements. And so that is one thing that you want to keep on the what if we change that type of list. So. And then we went inside the existing building and really don't see as many problems other than you just need more space, right? The existing Ox Gym, we're talking about adding more courts so you can spread out your practices and have more opportunity for phys ed, also the fitness room, and then you see some storage here. So we're not seeing bad condition necessarily inside. We're just seeing, tight spaces, and you need a little more space for that. I'll bring it to questions and discussions. And before I get to that, one thing that I will say, give you 3 examples. We reached out to 3 schools that have recently dealt with concrete bleachers, just like yours. Washington Township, North Central High School, they had them in similar condition. I would say they're probably worse condition, but they were pretty bad. They decided to take those down. If you haven't seen them, rebuild them. They're complete, aren't they now, Bob? Yeah. They're finishing up. So they're replacing those. They built separate buildings for end zone buildings. And did they improve underneath those? What did they do underneath those? Well, they put new bleachers in. Yeah. So they've put all new aluminum bleachers in. So they have no buildings, no spaces underneath their bleachers now. And so they got rid of the leaks, got rid of the issues that you're having. Lawrence North, Lawrence Central did the same thing. They build twins when they do things. So they took down the old bleachers and they kept up put up new aluminum bleachers, just like they did at North Central. And then the third example is Southport. A few years ago, Southport decided to keep theirs and to coat them. They're structurally fine. And we talked to their facility director. He said, look, they're fine. They're structural. We're okay with it. They do leak a lot. So, that's the thing you're trying to get away from is the leaking. So they're okay with the leaking. I don't know for sure if they have finished spaces under there. I think they have mostly storage. But anytime you have finished spaces, you want to get rid of those leaks. So that's what we found so far. We wanted to share that with you tonight. We open it up for any questions, discussion, and go from there. Did I miss anything?
When you think about the removal of the bleachers and installation of new aluminum style, how long of a project is that?
It's probably 12 to 14 months. I'll let Patrick kind of chime in a little bit because he builds them.
It's a project that could be done in an off-season for football to not impact football season. We would want to coordinate it with the other sports and, maybe for track, replace them, in some
One
fashion.
side after the other, in other words, sequentially, one side after the other
One
kind of
after
thing?
the other so that you have one open for track. Things like that. But we want to minimize the impact on your operations.
There would be some design time, bidding, and then ordering the bleachers. Bleachers are taking a long time to get in, and so we would want to pace that out and make sure we're planning for whatever season whatever summertime we make sense to move in there and get that
Realistically,
done.
it would be, at this point, looking to bring these online before the 2025 football season.
Yeah.
The 2024 season would be too soon to have these bleachers up and ready.
And what storage solutions are there if we lose the storage that's under the current bleachers and we put up aluminum that don't have storage buildings underneath them?
Yeah, we're looking at a separate, one of the program items that when we had our first presentation interview with your team was to do a new separate storage building outside. You can store some things under the bleachers, but they're really not weather tight very well. Some things that, hurdles, stuff like that Okay, get wet, you can do that, some people do that. But we were looking at putting up to a 60 by 100 metal building. Maybe it's a little smaller, we got to make sure it fits the budget, but that's how that would handle the storage.
Would the restroom and concession facilities then go in a separate building from the storage building, or would they
Yeah,
all be co-located?
if you took down those bleachers, and again, one option could be keep them, and what can you do to renovate underneath for restrooms? If that didn't happen, then yeah, you'd build a new separate building. Ideally, like a lot of them are building them at the end of the field.
So they
end
serve
zone
both
building.
sides?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, we call it an end zone building, and there's several examples of that being done recently. That way you can put visitors on one side, home on the other side for concessions and restroom, kind of keep them separated, and then your football teams can be kind of in the middle. Baseball can use it, track, shared locker rooms and all that.
So that would be a second building?
That would be a second building aside from the storage building. The storage building could be more of a barn-like metal type building. We'd have to look at what that is, but certainly a steel metal building would probably be the ideal for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep the storage and a lower cost per square foot building would be the strategy there.
Got it.
I feel like I have had, from the original presentation work and discussions that we've had, I feel like I had, if not entirely, pretty close to entirely, moved past the idea of screwing around with those existing bleachers. And it seemed to me, I was convinced that that was not the best idea, that for a variety of reasons, all the way from making an investment, yes, but one that would last us, one that seemed like it would be smarter, one that took care of all of the problems, didn't just mask or cover problems. Should I be backtracking from that and giving this realistic consideration?
Well,
Or is that just kind of I feel like I have to say this, so
No, I'll tell you where that came from. I mean, when we went into our interview, we were pretty convinced you wouldn't keep those because we just haven't seen them kept successfly very much. Southport's an example where they kept them and they leak. So I don't think that's successful. However, I think as we started meeting as a group, we'd understood that another team in an interview talked about an opportunity to put, what's the material you put elastomeric? Yeah, elastomeric, seal it and that sort of thing. That came up, and so the group thought, do we need to at least do our diligence, look at what it would take to do this, to keep it, do a pros and cons list against doing new, and that's what we think the next step is. We can do that quickly with our team and come back and say, we probably know the answer at the end of the book, but until we go through that exercise, I think it's just doing our diligence.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think we've backtracked at all and said, hey, what about this? We just think maybe we need to show, in case someone asks, why aren't you keeping those?
Okay.
That sort of thing.
I mean, I could buy that. I mean, I will also say, though, that part of the reason that you're here and the others
Yep.
aren't is because I think, agreed with, with what you were saying.
Yep.
And so I would not, I like the idea of due diligence, but I also don't see a need for you to be wasting time.
Okay.
So if that is, something that can be done, I'm one person here, but boy, we talked about this a lot that night. And so if that's something that can be done and, it makes sense, and yes, and almost to me, it seems like validating what we
Right.
think.
Yeah.
So that we are, in fact, we're not, this is a lot, so we want to be sure, but, okay.
Well, and I will say the other thing that's important is you have a 1028 preliminary determination hearing coming up for your bonds. At that meeting, you need to state your need for the project, and this really hits at it right here. You have a need. So I think that's why we put this presentation together tonight, to show that there's a need for it, and whenever your hearings are, probably showing these pictures and the things we found would be important, so people see why you're doing what you're doing.
And I guess while we're talking, kind of on a record of sorts, I mean, we are talking about redoing fields, things that, again, I don't have a lot of desire to have this be this hodgepodged. And I think, one of the things that we really liked was you guys' global big picture. And
Yep.
so.
You're exactly right, and I think that brings us to our next slide, really, well, it's gone, but next steps. So the next steps, I think, obviously, you don't have all your money in place yet, so we don't want to get too far out ahead and start incurring invoices and that sort of thing. We don't want that to happen because you have to go through the approval process yet first. So what we've been doing is really talking about these options, reviewing the existing bleachers, making sure we're making the right decisions. But I think the next step is to start to do a preliminary design phase so that we can really set the scope with the budget, working with Dr. Trebley's, I guess it's policy analytics and Ice Miller, knowing what the schedule and what the funding dollars might be. We need to take that program, all those program items and see what fits the budget, and we tweak to make it fit. Part of that's going to be a running track. If it's probably new bleachers, it's a new end zone building with lockers, could be a new storage building, synthetic turf on the field, all those things that we've talked about, ADA access to the different fields. We've also talked about, another aux gym, a 2 or 3 court aux gym to go at the high school. So I think the next step is for us to go through a preliminary design phase so that when we come to the first preliminary determination hearing, we can say, here's what fits the budget, here's some things that might be outside it, but we'll keep an eye on them as potential alternate bid items and that sort of thing. So we've got some work to do to align budget and scope. But yes, all those things are still in the project, at least up to the amount of budget we have to spend.
Great.
And we meet every 2 weeks on Monday, so we are staying in touch. We're working it together as a team, and I guess we have another meeting next Monday where we'll start fine-tuning scope a little bit more.
And it's also important to note that this isn't just about one facility. We have several facilities and several mechanical needs within the district that need to be addressed, and this is all part of that audit. So this isn't just about a football stadium or a track, but we have heating and cooling needs and other facility needs, and it's impacting things both in our athletic program and in our academic programs when we start talking about some of these facilities. So I want to make sure that we're always clear about that.
Which is a great lead into the next. Woody Holm, if you would please.
Okay, thank you.
Come to the
Thank
stand.
you.
Thank you, guys. We'll go through all three. I probably should have done a little better intro than that as I hear this, but this is for the whole corporation that we did a facility study. And this was just the first part, and it is something that I've heard about it for 10 years. Some of you have lived here longer than me, and you've heard about it for a couple decades here. So we finally got the right people here to give us information on what's good, what's bad, what's a little ugly, and what can we do. So today's the point of going through everything, and this is the guy responsible for the air conditioning in the high school gym, which everyone has said thank you. We have Brad's here. You're welcome. You've sat in it a few days hot, all of you, so you're the guy.
Okay, am I driving this, or?
No, let me drive it.
That'd be great.
Can you put my screen on, please, Bill?
Yeah, so what I'm going to talk about, and I'm not going to lie to you, but a lot of the information I'm going to give you is going to be a year or two old, and the supply chain issues, and I'm going to talk about mechanical electrical systems. So buying chillers and buying boilers, it's been an adventure for the last couple of years in terms of the lead times and the pricing and that sort of thing. So any prices I'm giving you, we either generated them last summer. We participated in the study of all your buildings last summer. So some of these numbers and photographs came from that. And then we've also been working on some particular projects that Brian and Kyle have been interested in, particular needs that have come up in the last 6 months. So we've gone into further detail on some of that, but even some of those numbers are 6 months old, and 6 months old is pretty old in today's market. So, and I'll go pretty fast. I won't talk at all about the junior high school because based on my walkthrough, that was the one facility that probably needs the least amount of work of all your facilities. It had a fairly major renovation not too long ago, so I mean, I've got some things in my notes listed from that study, and I think the last few pages of this is a full shopping list of all the things you could do, which is, I'm sure, is millions and millions of dollars. But that was kind of the idea of the study, is to give you a shopping list so you can pick and choose what your priorities are. So the high school, just a couple issues that we kind of highlighted. We've been talking about the chillers for the last couple of years, and that is a picture of the centrifugal chiller that's in the boiler room, and it also has a cooling tower on the roof. The chiller is 30 years old, Brian, I think. It went through a major rebuild a few years ago, but it's still, I mean, this type of equipment was built to last 25 or 30 years, and it's at the end of its life. Put considerable money into the tower this past summer, just to buy 3 or 4 more years with the tower. So the tower and the cooling tower both together. And at the time we looked at that, we looked at a lot of different options to get away from the tower completely. There's a lot of maintenance associated with a water-cooled cooling tower. So I think if you go down a page, did I have some numbers here? So I mean, this is some estimates we put together. Again, this was probably a year ago for replacing the cooling tower and the chiller, and we looked at some different options with some air-cooled options so you don't get rid of the tower. So that's a major ticket item that needs to be under consideration. The only other thing at the high school is you've got, I mean, the bulk of the high school was built in the 1960s. It's got the old E.I. Brown underground tunnel air system, which blows air out, and it comes up along the side of the classrooms through the fin tube radiation. It's a fairly dated system, and it will be fairly expensive to replace because you got big equipment in the basement. But we've done a lot of buildings. Like I said, it was E.I. Brown, so there were hundreds of buildings with similar systems throughout Indiana. Some of the options we're going to talk about at the elementary school could be implemented at the high school too, to fix those classrooms. Allison Elementary, that thing you're looking at is called a multi-zone air handling unit, which was a big thing in the 50s. So I mean, basically all those dampers, and those are pneumatic dampers that actuate a hot damper and a cold damper. You got hot air, you got cold air, and each one of those segments is a duct that goes down onto the floor, across in the classroom. So it's, like I said, it was a big deal in the 50s, but we've got much better technology nowadays, and that was really built to last 30 years. So you've doubled that so far. So that's something we actually started talking about, replacing the boilers in these elementary schools, and the boilers are kind of right next to that unit, and it's a small mechanical room. That's kind of a lousy picture of the boiler, but that's where the boilers sit in that same room. So the boilers are dated too. Those boilers were 75% efficient when they were put in, and they're probably operating at 65% efficiency now. And if we put a new one in, it'd be 92, 93% efficiency. So obviously there's some dollars to be saved by replacing the boilers. My concern was, let's not replace the boilers when it's sitting next to a big air handling unit that probably needs to be replaced. So I think we gave you some numbers on some of the schools for basically taking that big unit out of the mechanical room, putting units in the corners of your classroom, which you've got in a lot of your newer classroom remodels, newer additions. We did 1 or 2 of your classroom additions, and they have unit ventilators in them. So those ventilators were kind of designed for schoolrooms because they could bring in a lot of fresh air, where you got a high density of 30 kids in a classroom. and then they can provide heating and cooling. Now, all your elementary schools have brand-new chilled water systems, which are in very good condition. So this system would be able to be piped to that, and that would free up room so you could put boilers in the boiler room and be able to maintain them and have room for new water heaters and that sort of thing. So, see, what's the next elementary school? I mean, that's a budget number for getting rid of the multi-zone unit and putting unit ventilators in all the classrooms. Wheeler Elementary School, let's see, same thing with the air system. Can you go down a little bit? Is that the, so there you see it's a different boiler. These are still hot water boilers in that unit, that building, but there's another view of it. That's a different unit, another multi-zone unit. So you got the same system there. Both these, Allison and Wheeler, the ductwork goes down onto the floor, and I think is it Allison or Wheeler, some of the ductwork is crushed.
Allison.
And then some of it's in a crawl space, but so really identical situation there. The boilers have served their life, and the air handling unit is old technology. Newbie, these boilers are steam boilers, which brings in a whole nother level of complexity. So part of the building is steam. I think we got a picture of an air handler in there that's a steam air handler. That's up on the stage, I believe. So there again, 50s technology. New boilers would be way more efficient. We would not encourage you to put steam boilers back in there, which means we need to get rid of that steam piping. We need to replace that air handler. So that creates a project in and of itself to replace the steam boilers and replace anything that's on steam. And then the other 3/4 of the building is on hot water. The steam goes to a heat exchanger, which makes hot water. So those units could stay, but it's really the same thing. We could add some unit ventilators in that building also. And there's that's a cost estimate just to replace the steam boilers and replace the coils that we would have to if we got rid of steam boilers. That would make that air handler on the stage obsolete because it has a steam coil in it. We would either have to modify it or replace it. So then these last couple pages is a whole shopping list, like I said. When we did the walkthrough last summer, we were just looking for items where you could spend money if you needed to. You've got ongoing process of putting LED lights in your buildings, which is a good idea, and I think Brian and his guys have been taking care of that for the most part, and that should continue. So there's a multitude of projects that you can pick and choose from in there to add to the mechanical scope. And then we had a few notes about the athletic facilities, but there wasn't much there mechanically, so, I think that's all I got.
So the three buildings that we're talking about were built in 1952, 1956, and 1959. These are the same original mechanic rooms for the most part that we've started changing some things, such like what he said with our AC units and our outside chillers. The AC side, we knew this day's coming, and it's the boiler side of it. It's been there from, my math's not great, but somewhere maybe about 60 years.
Yeah,
so
that first multi-zone unit I showed you, we reviewed the drawings of the building, and the founder of my firm had his initials on that in the 1950s. He was about 40 years old, and he's 95 now. So
needless to say, the equipment and what we do for anything that we do. And since I've been here for 10 years, we try to do it the best so it lasts the longest for the community, for the kids, for the teachers, for the taxpayers. And I think this is a testament to that we've had things that have lasted a long time. And people ask me, why all this now? Well, we've been doing the best we've been doing. Brian Kiefer in the behind, I can't see him. I don't know if he's asleep now. He's awake back there. He's been here 11 years, and we do our best every day to troubleshoot things to make them last. But
It's amazing that, I mean, Lou has dampers down in the lower level at the high school that he's got open and closed to keep those kids satisfied down there.
Yeah, and we're talking about the units in the wind or in the tunnels down the high school, the air handlers that we always consistently have bearings out and things and whatnot. So we have a small team and we work really hard. So I'm proud of our people, and I'm proud of what you're telling us, that we've been able to go this long for 60 years. So everything we're doing, just to let you know, this team, we're trying to make whatever we do last for another, I don't know if anything can last 60 years, but boy, I'd like to try. So
Yeah, no, it's surprising it lasted this long.
yeah. Well, you're kind of the boring guy because no one really wants to talk about this stuff in mechanic rooms, but this keeps me up at night. So I thank you, Woody. I trust you, and we do have a question. Sorry, Mr. Smith.
Time frame, how long does it take to get some of these things? I know at one point in time, it said it takes a year or something.
If it's complicated, it's a year. When we were looking at the chillers, they were 50 weeks after you order them. So there's a whole public bid process prior to that, and then shop drawing approval and that sort of thing, and then the clock starts. It's getting a little better, yeah, complicated air handlers or chillers and certain pieces of equipment are close to a year. A lot of this stuff is coming down, and it's 26 weeks or 16 weeks. It's not too bad.
Thank you.
Is this the type of project that when you start to take things out and then look at it, you uncover more problems, or is it usually a pretty simple replacement?
Well, I mean, we're supposed to know about those systems, and we're going to try to point out what's in bad shape. And yeah, we should be smart enough to know that if we pull this out, something's going to happen to that. So, I mean, yeah, we'll be honest with you that if you're going to replace this, you got to replace this. I mean, that's what, like I said, we started talking about boilers, and I said that would be a shame to replace the boilers this year and then replace that big air handling unit a year from now, because it'd just be hard to get stuff in and out.
Okay, great.
I mean, we try to give you numbers that would reflect the total project and the current market. Like I said, some of the numbers we got right now are a year old, but once you figure out where your priorities are, we can update those numbers, and so you know more what it's going to cost and how long it's going to take.
Thank you.
Is this something that, will there be no air when we're going to school or no heat? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we try to do as much as we can in the summer. Summers have gotten shorter. So if we can take out half a wing of classrooms, what we're proposing for the elementary schools is a univentilator system, like I said, and that we can leave that big unit running to serve part of the building. If you can give us a couple classrooms for a 3-month period, we'll go in one classroom, and you may be doing finishes in that classroom at the same time, and we can take that, even if you have to get a couple temporary classrooms if the buildings are full. But these elementaries are small enough that potentially we could do all those univentilators in one summer. We would just have to get them ordered. Obviously, we can't do it this summer, but a year from now, we could have those units sitting on the curb and ready to go in. So it'd be more of a problem as we get into your bigger schools.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there's one more presentation that I get to lead. Again, that was the boring side of it, but that's kind of the costly in our mechanic rooms. Thanks, Woody. No, I don't mean that in a bad way, that you're the boring person. The other side, we went through all of our buildings. So we took a look and we assessed our roofs, our windows, the walls. So just to think that, are these just hand things that we're just pulling out of a hat? That's not true. These are the things that have risen to our attention. And being here for as long as I have, I kind of had an idea, but it's nice to have the experts come in to identify these. Here's some other things that are not necessarily in no particular order, but Jordan Auditorium, if you can pull that up, there's some areas there. And of course, being in the high school for many years myself, there's some attention that needs to be taken into the Jordan Auditorium, for example. And this isn't big ticket items as much as what we were just talking about, but I believe this is important too, is if we're going to correct some things and upgrade things, such as the floor in Jordan Auditorium, new curtain, the lighting system up on top. Brian, can you hear me? I have a blind spot from the person I want to look at. Can you just stand up so I can look at you there? But this is like, every spring play and fall play, we go through the same thing. We have some canisters that go out, and it just seems like it's always a disaster, not a disaster, but it just always takes our time and people and finance to fix that, resources. So there needs to be some work done in our lighting. Our sound system board is probably on its last leg. We've been putting a lot of duct tape on it, but I know that we've done a lot in the lighting board, but the sound board's next. So these aren't big ticket items, but these are things also we're looking at. Just to let everybody know we're taking a look at the whole corporation, not just pieces of that. So those are some pictures to show. You can see the tear in the carpet. Nope.
We're not seeing it.
Bill? Thank you. Stay with me, Bill. The other one that's really boring is parking lots. And these are the things, if you don't really notice when you drive in, I do. Every day I drive to all of our schools, but this is the front parking lot of the high school. Of course, it's on 25th Street, and if you've been on that road also, that's a little rough. A little. And then our parking lot's right next to it. So what do we call that? You call that an animal, an alligator? Alligator. Yeah, it's starting to really happen. These pictures really do a really good job. It doesn't look that bad, but when you're on it, that's kind of a crater right there in that middle picture. Of course, we knew going into this, it just costs a lot of money to replace parking lots. This is probably our worst one out of the whole corporation, and we got an estimate a few months ago, and it was roughly, $60,000, 52, I think it was, just to redo the front. And that's not just chip seal, that's digging all the way down, grinding, they call that.
Milling it.
Milling it all the way down.
Right, yes.
So we're kind of waiting with the town to see what they're doing on 25th Street, which we're working with the city of Indianapolis. Maybe we can work something out with that. So just let you know, hey, we're looking at everything here, not just certain things. The other side on the right, two pictures, is Wheeler Elementary, and that's our half circle. So there needs to be some, it just costs a lot of money to redo the curbs and the entryway there, the apron we call it, going into Wheeler. And that would be our second round of parking lots we'd like to take a look at. Of course, all of them need to be striped and chip and sealed. We do that about every other year, and we'll repaint them, but that's just a paint job. So it might look nice to everybody, but it's really just some paint. So this is the real problems here that cost money. And why does it keep doing that? Let's go down. Finally, out of all the corporation, the facilities that we have, we only have one building and one half of a building in Wheeler that's single pane windows. So over the years before I was here, Mr. Hold and probably I assume Mr. Wagner, they went through double pane windows, and we have one section left to do. So that price has, what'd you say the other day, tripled?
Probably 170,000.
Yeah. And just, 5 years ago it was 70,000, so its prices have gone up or whatnot. So that's to bring to our attention to see if that's, where we can fit that in also. So we're not just talking about a football field, we're talking about windows, roofs, we're checking out everything we have in the corporation to put a plan that's going to be for the next many, many years. So I think that's, this is a really interesting one. 1940, I'm going to throw a date out there, before the 1950s, the junior high. What you're seeing on the far left-hand side, that's a structural where the window goes through, and that holds up the bricks, and that's deteriorating. So luckily, it's nice and tight right now, but that's something we need to go back through and underneath all the window seals, and I assume there's a term for that. Lintels. So, Mr. Disney, you're laughing at me. Lintels. Just to let people know, I believe on that wall on the top, no one even knew this, but we had leakage that was going into our junior high gymnasium, and we spent about $19,000 for the fix, which was the cap of that one wall. Because the last thing we want is leakage into our buildings, and we finally found it, and we went ahead and fixed it, and that was, if this was spring, it was fall break, or it was at one of our breaks recently. It was this year.
Yeah.
Just recently. Yeah, no. Fall break. Yeah. It was this year, but we went ahead and got that with your guys' approval, and we went ahead and fixed that problem. There's always problems, and there's always things and needs for duct tape and caulking. So this is a little more than just duct tape, if you can see on the far left-hand side, but it can be fixed. So just try to give everybody a full picture. There's something in every building, and there's things that need to be done in every building. So that's what I have there. Any questions on these slides? I know that's a lot today. But we've been working on this for a couple of years. We've been talking about it for, I feel like, a couple decades, but we finally have the pictures and the know-how and the people and the assessments behind this to lead us down this path. So that is the presentation of the facilities.
Great.
I am completed.
Anybody have anything else? Any other questions?
Tell them they leave. Tell them they leave.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, everyone, and feel free to skedaddle out of here. You're welcome to stay, of course, but we absolutely released you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so we're going to move forward with the fourth item on our agenda, which is the presentation of the preliminary report regarding 2024 summer school programming.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Disney and his team's been working on this, but this is a preliminary plan for summer school 2024. It's pretty much identical. It's similar to the past years, but this is just the proposal. There's no vote needed on it tonight. But just to inform you that the elementary, junior high I-Learn review and preparation of specific targeted reading instruction for the third graders who do not pass I-Read 3, which we'll have a report the next meeting when it's not, when it's embargoed. It's embargoed right now. We'll be able to get that out to the public on that. We're very pleased where we're at. It's been consistent in the last with our data. But we are going to go ahead and focus on, hey, guess what? The students and instruction for those kids that have deficiencies. We're also including enrichment, acceleration opportunities that the kids will be able to sign up for, such as band classes, and elementary students will be entering junior high and taking instrumental music in fall of 24, marching band like we always do for the class in the high school. Elementary enrichment classes, we have sign-ups going on right now. This is kind of just introduction. Hey, this is happening right now. Reading, writing, speaking, STEM, health and wellness, which will be open to elementary kids. And finally, which my next line item here, the agenda, we'll ask for a recommendation for the free swim lessons again for students age 5 and above at Speedway High School through the Parks Department. So very similar in the past, but it's just let everybody know it's coming. It's, can you believe it's April 9th already? So these signups will be very, very soon.
If I could add something to what you said, that the third grade that I read that we are doing, we're also, since second grade took I read this year, we're inviting those that were at risk if they want to participate in that summer program. So it's not going to be mandated, of course, but if they want to, because they get an opportunity to retake the test again in the third grade. But that it's never been open to second graders before, and it is now.
Anything else? Okay. The fifth item is to approve funding for recreational program administered by Speedway Parks and Rec Department.
And I'm going to catch this on one recommendation, but it's to reimburse the town of Speedway up to $15,000 in support of our summer recreational programs and up to $7,000 for swim lessons, specifically designed to serve the children of our school community. There is absolutely zero change from last year.
I'll make a motion that we approve the funding for the recreational programs to run summer 2024.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? None other than this is a great thing.
Yep.
So, all in favor of approving the funding for the recreational program as indicated, please raise your hand. No one is opposed, so, great. You signing this one I have here in my packet, or?
We just empower the superintendent to sign it.
Yep, okay. The sixth item is the acknowledgement of grants received to the tune of $829. That's great. Awesome. And then the seventh item is personnel report.
On the April personnel report, we have the following resignations for your consideration. Lauren Molson has resigned as the assistant cheerleading coach at Speedway High School. Kylie Keevy is the head varsity swim coach at Speedway High School, and also pool director at Speedway High School. And Johnny West as the assistant football coach at Speedway High School. Under disability leave, Jeannie Buck, who's a sixth grade teacher at Wheeler Elementary, has submitted a request for a disability leave from April 2nd until the end of the school year. Under retirement, Jeannie Buck has submitted her letter of resignation for retirement, effective at the end of the school year. Under employment, Lauren Molson is a long-term substitute teacher for Rachel Abel. Sierra Venable for a social-emotional mentor. Haley Cooper, a long-term substitute teacher for Jeannie Buck. And Jason Brooks as the principal of Carl G. Fisher Elementary School. One other item is Carly Smith is being recommended as a volunteer coach for varsity girls tennis, which now I think has 46 tennis players in the girls tennis right now. So pretty incredible.
Wow.
Amazing. My recommendation is you approve the personnel report as presented.
I'll move that we accept the personnel report as presented.
I'll second.
Great. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of approving the personnel report as presented indicate by raising your hand. And that passes 5-0. Our visitors have left. Do we have any other business?
I have one thing that if I could encourage parents, if they have kindergarten age students for next year, that we have a kindergarten roundup taking place in Speedway schools. It's on Tuesday, April the 19th at all of our elementary schools from 5:30 to 6:30. It really helps us in preparing for next school year. So if you live in a certain elementary district, if you go to that elementary school 5:30 to 6:30 on April 19th, that would really help us prepare for kindergarten classes for next school year.
Right. Okay, well, with that, we will adjourn tonight's meeting and, sign claims, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.